Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast. I am absolutely excited for you to just watch this episode if you're interested in fashion, because if you love anything about styling, outfits, and shoes in particular, then you're gonna absolutely adore this episode with an amazing entrepreneur whose mad shoes, as in Alice in Wonderland, have been worn at the Emmys. And by that, I'm super excited today to introduce you to someone that has a dynamic force in both entrepreneurship and storytelling. Georgiana Ghiciuc. From academia to agency life and from employer branding to shoe branding, Georgiana's journey is anything but conventional. But here's her real momentum and when it came. It's when she embraced the nascent world of content marketing and turned that insight into Beagle Cat, a boutique agency that helped over 40 tech companies around the globe find their voice and grow their brands. Later, she tapped into a fresh frontier, recruitment marketing, using solid digital marketing strategies to help organizations attract and retain talent across Romania, Germany, and the US. And now, Georgiana is literally stepping into a new chapter, transforming her longtime passion for shoes into a full-fledged business, designing and marketing elegant, expressive footwear for women who love originality just like she does. She's the designer and founder of Matte Shoes. From employer branding to high heels, Georgiana reminds us that true entrepreneurship is about embracing curiosity, learning into reinvention, and turning even the most unexpected interests into opportunity. Welcome on the SMARTA Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It blew my mind that in the green room, I managed to actually find the Vogue December edition where your matte shoes are featured over here.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing kickoff to the podcast. So I couldn't think of a better way to start, just mentioning
Thank you for that. Yes.
where you're featured, where you're focused. Where I want to start is thanks to your layered background from university halls to digital campaigns to luxury footwear. If you can talk directly with a person listening, what would be the top 3 key takeaways that they can take from your experience?
If you had asked me, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, what I would be doing today, I would have never in 1,000 years said shoes or fashion or, something
Really?
as ridiculously unusual for me, because I was always, I was the straight A student going to pursue a master's degree abroad, going for the PhD, then teaching at the university, then starting with entrepreneurship with things that are much more down to earth than fashion. And I would have never guessed that life can take such a turn of events. But I think the main takeaway I got from all this journey is that you have to embrace change. And you have to be ready for what life throws at you, because sometimes change is for the better. I mean, most of the time it is for the better. But what I wanted to say is that you can get surprises, some of them good, some of them bad. And the reason I say this is that I started the shoe business in a time when I was losing clients in my consulting business. I mean, I've been in entrepreneurship and in digital marketing and employer branding for, I think, over 10 years, 12 years, and things were going great until they weren't. Until, the IT industry kind of started to take a downturn when budgets were no longer available, and that happened 2-3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I could see that, there's less money being put into it, there's less faith being put into employer branding, so what could I do with my life if this ever ends? And then my husband, who is my number one fan, who's been my number one fan from the very beginning, he just asked, if you were to do the job of your dreams, what would that be? Another key takeaway, aside from embracing change and to, always hope for the better, is to try to think what you're good at and what you would like to do. Sometimes it seems so grandiose and so impossible to tackle that, you're going to say, oh, how do you start?
Yeah.
How do you do it? But I think you can find a way if you really, really put your mind to it. And then be adaptable. As time goes by, I'm like, yes, man, this is what young people should try and be today. Adaptable. Because you never know what you're going to get into.
Also in the world of fashion, with ever-changing trends, if you're not spontaneous to pick up on them and instantly do a twist around your marketing strategy, you need to learn to be adaptable to be in the top ranks. With this, I want to ask you more about how you went from having this idea that your husband believed in to taking your vision and convincing clients that actually match shoes has value back then?
Well, you know what? I think match shoes only started like about 2 years ago. It isn't yet where I want it to be. But I feel like what really has helped me was breaking the whole journey into very small steps and then working on each step week after week and then waiting to be surprised, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. I always, stayed true to my vision in the sense where the first prototype I worked on with a factory in Romania was a fuchsia satin stiletto. And before I started working on it, I was always asking myself this question: how does one start a shoe business? What is the smallest step you need to do to get into this? Because you wouldn't normally tackle that, right? You want to do your own business. Maybe you start with jewelry, or maybe you start with more manageable things, right? Or things that you can do yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas I cannot make shoes for the life of it, even if I wanted to. And so what I did was to just, find the proper supplier, then work on the right prototype. And I was telling you about the fuchsia satin stiletto, which for me was magical and which was a model that I had been dreaming of for years. I had found fuchsia satin heels that cost €1,000, so they were completely, out of range. And then I found these €200 or €100 shoes, or less than €100 actually, which were very uncomfortable. So I said, let's try and find the middle ground here, try to find a prototype that doesn't cost €1,000, that isn't as uncomfortable as the €50 one, and that really looks good. And I thought people would embrace my vision. I was convinced I'm going to sell hundreds of pairs, although we only produce 50 pairs per month. We're a very limited collection company, and this is ingrained in our business model. But people did not share my vision. There were, of course, fashionistas who were super excited to be wearing those stilettos, who loved the gold hearts, who loved the porcelain butterflies and the porcelain flowers that we used for our first batch. But not everybody tuned into that vision, because on top of being fuchsia, they were very high. They were like 10 centimeter heels, and those are uncomfortable to walk in, So that got me very conflicted along the way. That got me to doubt myself and to doubt my vision and to be very like, maybe I'm a little bit insane. Maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing. After a while, as I was seriously doubting my sanity, I started getting these emails from stylists based in London, from stylists based in LA and in the Middle East. And then I got this request for a pair of shoes for a Disney premiere in London. And then someone else in LA wrote me an email. And then someone in the Middle East said, oh my God, these shoes are fantastic. They're so colorful and we should definitely work together. And I'm sure they would be successful over there. Then I stopped questioning my sanity, and this is how I think the moment that I really started to buy into my vision was the moment that these very successful stylists bought into it. And now for me, this shoe is a staple. The fuchsia satin stiletto is here to stay, basically.
Mm-hmm. It's your favorite. It's the one to go. It's where everything started from.
Yes.
I want to take you back to 2017, when you transitioned your agency's expertise from marketing products to marketing workplaces. Can I ask you in particular, Georgiana, what you learned about connection between employer branding and storytelling?
This was quite accidental, if I can say so. I mean, the reason why I learned about content marketing in the very beginning was through my paper packaging business. I simply started to write content on the website about various types of paper for your paper bags, and then the bags started selling, and that's how I discovered there was something to it. There was never any calculation into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somewhat things took the same turn for employer branding when we were working for the Romanian branch of a US company, circa 2017, I think. And we were doing content for them, right? We were doing some social media marketing, we were writing blog posts, whatever was in hype at the time. It was very fashionable to be doing content marketing at the time, and lead gen marketing, and to be working with HubSpot, and to do the whole lead generation process, and to be working on the funnel. And then this same client said one day, and I'll never forget that day, all of this expertise, you are so good at generating leads for a business. Why don't you help us generate leads for our HR department? And I was like, yeah, but how does one do that? Yeah. And he said, I think just the same as you are doing it right now for your clients. only instead of generating business leads, you would help us generate recruitment leads. And this is how it started. Briefly, you'd work on a landing page in HubSpot, and then people would put in their email address and you would send them a free content sample. So this is what we did. This is how we helped companies, starting with that one, to emphasize what they are good at, to showcase their employee value proposition, to showcase what makes them special, and to help them just, evangelize what was happening on the inside. And it was working, and it worked for a very long time, up until maybe 2-3 years ago when things changed.
Can I ask you more about the young professionals out there? What would be the best advice you could give a student that is just finishing university, has that amazing entrepreneurial mindset, and wants to kick off and launch their business?
Now, looking back, I would have 2 major pieces of advice. One of them that I followed myself, and one that I didn't, and then I wish I had.
Okay.
And the first one would be to travel as much as possible, because
I love that one.
you know what? I think that experiencing foreign cultures firsthand from a very early age makes you into a person who only has to gain in their lifetime.
I absolutely agree.
I had tremendous experiences while traveling for my studies, and not only for my studies, and I would never ever change that. And I hope that my daughter gets to travel at least half of how much I did, and she gets to have at least half of the benefits that I got. It basically transforms you into a different person. You can relate to other people more, you can relate to other cultures, you integrate more easily wherever you go, and you're always curious. And I think curiosity is what keeps us alive, right? In the end, in business and in our personal life. And then the second one, which I didn't do, and I wish I had more, my husband did it. He had quite a radically different background when compared to me. He started work at about 19, and he's super successful, the most successful person that I know. And I'm learning a lot from him. I studied a lot. I preferred to study and study after studying after studying. And then at some point I said, maybe it's time for me to also experience the workplace and the real life in the end. And although I had done an internship in France in Sanofi Aventis during my master's degree, when I came back to Romania and started my own business, and then going back to Germany and working in various companies, I told myself, I think it would have been better for me to intern as early on as possible, which I know that you did. You interned at ProTV, which is amazing, and I congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
And I think young people should see firsthand what workplaces look like. As early as possible, because then you'll know if you resonate with a corporation, you'll know if you want to be an entrepreneur, you'll know what works for you and what doesn't.
Absolutely.
So
I feel like traveling is starting to be a little more of a question mark for young people, because many of them see vacation and holidays separate to their actual work life and working in general. And I saw this post about Simon Squibb that says working and traveling should go hand in hand. It's always how you can seek maybe, travel work, such as with you with your shoes. Maybe you attend a Disney gala where your shoes are present and you're able to take interviews to show your journey. Or in my case, I had my first job back in April, where I was a presenter at Makers and Movers event, and I experienced Switzerland for the very first time, and I was working. And I absolutely agree with everything you say, that it broadens your knowledge, and it absolutely makes you catch on a lot more things really quickly. And I guess it also helps you become a lot more adaptable, touching into what you said before. I want to ask you more about pursuing your business, and anyone that wants to have aspirations and wants to get them but doesn't know how. In particular, I want to talk about the shoes. Can I ask you about what your moment was when you decided this isn't just a guilty pleasure, it's here to stay, and more people should walk in comfortable, elegant shoes at the same time?
it actually happened at a time when I was very low in my life. I was experiencing burnout. I was not in a good place professionally or personally, let's say approximately 3 years. I could see that the IT business is not going as well as it was. We were starting to not get as much business in consulting and employer branding, and I could see departments eliminating the employer branding function, which unfortunately they are doing until this day. And so I started to think, okay, if I stop working in services, what would it be that I would do? And like I said, this is when my husband asked me the question, what would it be that you would do? And that got me thinking. And after careful consideration and admitting that it's not just a guilty pleasure for me,
Yeah,
it's actually
absolutely.
what I live for. I love fashion and I love looking at clothes and pairing them with shoes and thinking of various accessories and browsing Pinterest and browsing Farfetch and My Teresa. And I just said, I have to turn this into something tangible. I have to see where it takes me. But let's just try first and, we'll see along the way. And now as I look back to that, I feel like there was a lot of craziness into my decision. I come from digital marketing, right? So I spent many months analyzing the market and looking at other shoe brands, and my colleague contacted so many suppliers that we were in touch with. So I didn't really throw myself into it per se, but in a way I did, because I went, like I said, for the fuchsia color as a first prototype. I mean, who does that really?
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like the most natural thing. And like I said, at that point, they were appalled. They were not appalled. Appalled is not the good word. They were surprised by my decision and they congratulated me for it. But they didn't really buy the shoes because, like I said, they were pink and they were very high. But at the time, I remember telling myself, what have I done? Why didn't I take more time to work on different prototypes? Why didn't I take more time to assess different colors and different textures for these shoes? And why didn't I start out with a 5 centimeter kitten heel instead of the 10 centimeter one? But the truth is, they were and they are to this day absolutely gorgeous and they look fantastic. And the 10 centimeter heel just elongates the leg and it looks really elegant. And for myself, and I know for sure for the women who have purchased them, situation is the same. You attend an amazing event, you're not going to wear the 5 centimeter heels. You're going to go for the 10,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
So now I know, looking back and after having been written by these stylists abroad, I know now that it was the good decision. And like I said, the model is here to stay. This is why, in a way, I think if it seems crazy to you along the way, like you, for example, you are an amazing example for my thesis as well. You're only 17 and you're doing so many things and you were on stage already.
Yeah.
A few months ago. Who does that? Who thinks of that? This is unbelievable and I congratulate you for
Thank you
it.
so much.
And I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that you've thrown yourself into this, right? Saying that, at the end of the road, who knows where this journey will take me, and
Yeah.
you're doing great.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And it definitely was a passion that sort of blossomed ever since I was small and grew stronger. And I wanted to pursue something that flipped the tables from me visiting children and teenagers to me learning from C-suite experts. And I think that's what, really made me kick off searching for higher, more expertise in professional audiences. But I want to ask you here about your amazing determination and your endurance that you built throughout these years, that made you become stronger. What do you think would be the one thing that, always pulls you back to it, that no matter, the hardship that you've encountered, always makes you go back?
The sensation of freedom would be the simplest answer I could give right away. And I'm saying the sensation because there's actually no freedom in what you're doing and in what I'm doing and in entrepreneurship in general. Because you need to employ people, you need to make sure you still have a business next month to pay salaries and to ensure continuance. And you never know whether the market is going to be fruitful and successful 2 months from now or not. And it happened to us. We had months where we sold so many shoes and then months where we didn't sell even half of our expectations. And we couldn't really correlate it with anything in particular. So I think, like I said, you feel like you have the freedom of choosing the grander scope, like the grander scheme of things. And for me, it never left this feeling that I wanted to make the big decisions for myself. It never left while I was in Berlin working in a big company. It never left me while I was still in Berlin managing a marketing director job in this German fintech, and then managing the projects in my agency in Romania at the same time. I could never give it up and say, I'm going to be an employee full time. I think it's who you are. I didn't dislike being an employee and working in a company. I loved the feeling of having colleagues, of having big budgets. I love being able to manage a huge employer branding budget, which I never had with the companies that I worked for. So there are, advantages and disadvantages, but I think entrepreneurship is not for everyone. And I think you have to pick your battles and try it out just to know what it's like and what it feels like for you. And then at the end of the day or at the end of the year, you'll say, I want to continue or not. This is too stressful. This is too risky and I'm too risk averse. But you need to try it, right?
Absolutely. Can I take you back in time to when you were my age? And if you could talk to your 17-year-old self, what would be the one piece of advice or message that you would give yourself in terms of pursuing everything that you did once more with all the knowledge that you have now?
You're making me cry a little bit because
Really?
I think you never know what life holds for you. For me, I've been super fortunate. I've been very lucky my whole life. And even in times when I thought that everything was ending and everything was going downhill, I managed to find the silver line, or the light at the end of the rainbow. So I would say be patient, because even in hard times, and I know young people struggle, or my generation at least, they used to struggle with many things. And at some points, we would feel that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. We're never going to have a career in PR and communication, which is what we were studying at the time, or we don't know how this and that is done. You will know at some point. And fast forward to 12, 15, 20 years, you're doing it and you're good at it. And even when it doesn't work out, you'll understand why you did it in the first place. And every little step along the way is going to matter and is going to count in the overall expertise that you've built. Because I've gotten this question recently from someone asking, do you feel that your experience so far is helping you in any way for the shoe business? And I said, I think absolutely any kind of experience you could have had in your life is helpful one way or another, either via the network that you've built, or for me personally, via the marketing techniques that I've learned to know. And of course, I cannot do everything myself, but when I work with people, I know what to ask for. So everything is useful, and don't disregard anything. Just try to do as good as you can. Ask for help when you feel like things are getting too much out of hand. And like I said, just be patient and try to enjoy the process, because you're young and that doesn't last that long.
I want to move you into the SMARTA Podcast traditions, in particularly for the world of literature. And I want to ask you, Georgiana, if you had to pick the top 2 books that completely change the perspective through which you view life, which would they be?
One of them I think might be useful to your audience, and it is called Range. And Range is about achieving great results after having tried multiple experiences of various sorts in your life. And the reason why I chose this book is that it came for me in a moment where I was very low, where I felt like I've thrown myself into too many directions without going deeply into either one. And I felt like a failure, and I felt like, why can I not be like Serena Williams, for example, who's dedicated her entire life to playing tennis and who plays, 6, 8, 12 hours of tennis per day. And then I read this book, and it helped me understand that greatness can be achieved after after testing various experiences, after going through many types of things, jobs, whatever. It doesn't have to be exquisite from the very beginning. You don't have to have amazing results with one area of expertise from the very beginning. And that kind of shifted the perspective for me, and it helped me understand that I am on the right track, and I will probably find my calling, maybe I have already, later in life, and it's okay. It's okay not to have been in fashion since I was 19. Which now I understand and I agree with. And the second one that has been instrumental, if I can call it this way, is Alice in Wonderland. And I debated whether I should name it in the podcast, but then,
I knew you would
it
pick
has to
this
be
one,
important for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for me, this book has meant a lot in a time when I was very young and we didn't have a lot of cartoons and we were just exiting communism. It provided for me a world where I could be somewhere else and someone else and do things in a different way. And when I started my shoe brand, of course, it was a no-brainer for me that I would have to connect it with Alice in Wonderland, because I asked my mom, who was my primary school teacher, for years to add the name Alice to my name. And in the end, she did it in pencil in the student's register. And that made me very happy. So I think in my heart, I've always been Alice and I want to remain Alice. And I want to try to go down every hole that life has in store for me. And I hope everyone gets to do it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Alice, I started the podcast with you talking directly with the person listening. I want to end it in the same way. And if there's any advice that you would like to tell the listener, whether they're just at the start of their career or whether they're just graduating high school, what would it be?
Like I said, to be patient, to enjoy what life throws at you and to go through all of the experiences, not wishing you were somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Just be there where you are, because at some point, believe me, you will find the reason why you had to go through that experience, and it will make a lot of sense in the end. I promise you that.
I love it. Georgiana, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I wish best of luck to the little Alice inside of you that keeps wanting to create, and pursue your passion. And thank you for being on the podcast.
And thank you for inviting me. It's been refreshing and super nice. And I wish you the best of luck. And I really hope as many people, young people as possible, get to do what you are doing, because I find it really encouraging and amazing. Congratulations for that.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely brilliant for my inner fashionista. And actually, just to know that she's being featured in 5 issues of British Vogue is amazing. And her whole journey and her whole vision of having something, as I said in the podcast, that you don't only wear for going out with a regular dress and a heel that you don't think twice, just match the color, but rather that turns it into and I said this in the podcast, but I feel like I really have to reinforce it. The way she turned her idea of wearing elegant, but at the same time comfortable shoes into a state piece and into a statement piece and something that you can wear at amazing events, and something that is also in itself a decoration. Art, as she calls it, is incredibly impressive. And so I just wanted to ask you if you've had any passion for fashion and you've listened to this episode and at any moment you nodded your way through and said, this is actually something I've been wondering to ask myself, then can you please rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to the YouTube channel wherever you watch or listen to this episode. And as usual, I wanted to be the first person to tell you that I believe in you and your ability to create the life of your dreams. I'm Sonia, Marta, and this was the SMARTA Podcast, and I cannot wait to see you here next Monday.